Hello and welcome to my retro watches. Now a little while ago I did a video on the Seagull 1963 column wheel chronograph that was sent to me by AliExpress themselves. They really liked the video, they liked the way I presented it, and they asked me if I'd like to do another 2 watch reviews. Now, I don't want to have this channel constantly doing watch reviews. Certainly got loads of projects on at the moment with restorations. I've got 2 I'm filming currently at the same time. However, I couldn't miss this opportunity because there's still a few things that I'd like to explore. So unfortunately I am on a bit of a time constraint. I've got to get these videos done, so they will be more or less back to back, and then we will be, I promise, on to the restorations, because I know that's what most of you like to watch. However, this review I want to be slightly different than just showing you a watch, because like I said, they sent me 2 watches. I've got one in this box and I've got one in here. Now this is from a company called San Martin. Some of you may know that. They seem to be the king of copying, but they have come up with one that is their own design, and this really does suit this channel completely. That will be coming up next. We want to concentrate on this one here. This is the Chinese Tourbillon. So I thought we could have a look at this really in depth. So I'm going to do a proper review of the watch to start with, to fulfill that part of it, to show you the how cosmetically it looks nice. Then we're going to put it under the microscope. I'm going to take the movement out of the case so we can get up close and personal and see how that tourbillon works, and see if we can answer a few questions on quality, etc, etc. So let's cut to the bench. I'll show you the watch for the first time. So this is the box it comes in. Not very interesting if you ask me. It's trying to look like carbon fibre, but I think failing fairly miserably. Extremely average. It's a big box, so I guess it's supposed to be giving you that sort of grandeur feeling. It has a name on it that I can't pronounce, and that name does not appear on the watch at all. So when we open it up, of course, there it is. We'll show you that in a moment, and that's inside the box. It's quite interesting. It's a bit of fake leather, but not unattractive at all. The watch comes with a guarantee card. It has a number on it, but there's no serial number on the watch, so I don't know how you could validate that. Equally, it's not signed or anything on the back, so perhaps you get a guarantee, but I would not bank on it completely. Also comes with a spare strap. So this has got a black strap on it. This is the brown. Crocodile print. It is leather. It's okay. However, I will probably change it for something much better than that. So here is the watch itself. So that's the first glance at it. It's quite a big watch, but then I guess it might have to be to encase that tourbillon movement. So what we'll do now, I'll cut to the outside shots as I do with my review, so you can see it in the daylight, see what you think of it. I'll tell you the dimensions, I'll tell you a little bit about the tourbillon, and then we'll cut back to the bench here and we'll get examining it all nice and close. So here we are out in the daylight, and I think the watch looks very nice. So let's start off with the dimensions. So the case, as I've said before, is big. It is 42 millimeters in diameter. That is excluding that crown, by the way. So it is big. The case thickness, though, is just over 12 millimeters. It's 12.2 to be precise, so that's not too bad at all. Lug tip to lug tip, that is a massive 52 millimeters, which is far too big for me, really. But to its credit, the lugs do taper down, so it doesn't look awkward on the wrist. It kind of fits okay. And of course, I'll put some wrist shots up now so you can see what I'm talking about. The lug width is 22 millimeters, and this particular model comes with a deployment buckle as well. So at 3 o'clock, there's a large onion style crown. It's 7 millimeters in diameter, so you get plenty of grip on that. And I do think it complements the case quite well. So talking of the case is all high polished. There isn't a sharp edge anywhere. It's finished quite well. It's not stunningly shiny, but then does it have to be with this watch? Because it's all about the tourbillon that is displayed in that open heart style of dial. So on this one, the dial is a dark grey colour. There is a silver printed minute track running around the dial, and they are chromed hour indices. All very classic looking, but when you start to look a little bit closer, you will notice that the gaps between the indices are slightly different in size depending on where you're looking on the dial. Now, to believe it or not, I didn't notice this at first. It's taken a few days to actually pick it up. But what's happening there is the hands set in the not set in the middle of the dial. So they're slightly off centre, and I guess that's to accommodate the tourbillon complication itself. So what they've had to do is stretch the indices at the bottom to make sure that you can tell the time properly, of course. So when the minute hand, for instance, is at the 12 index, it's actually covering the whole of the index. And when it's at the 6 o'clock position, it's not even anywhere near touching the index at all. So interesting feature. Like I say, I didn't pick it up straight away, but now you can see it for yourself. So the hands are very fine sword hands. They've got a little flashing of loom on it, but nothing to write home about. So I'm definitely not going to be doing a loom shot on this particular watch. So that is really all I've got to say about the dial. Of course, it's very, very dressy. It's fascinating to look at because you're constantly just staring at the tourbillon going round and round. So on that basis, I've got to give it 10 out of 10 for visual aesthetics. At least that is with the naked eye. Here we are on the back of the watch, and you can see in detail this skeletonized movement. It looks really nice to me. You can make out most of the working parts, right from the exposed mainspring barrel, through the train of wheels, right up to the tourbillon cage. The skeletonized bridgework is nicely designed to show off all of those components. You've got some blued screws, which no doubt aren't real hardened blue screws, but there we go, and some nice jewels to show it off as well. So again, looks really good. Of course, many of these micro brands, you tend to see display case backs. I reviewed one recently, the Iron Watch, and of course that got a Miyota 9015 movement in it. Movement is very good in its accuracy, but not very thrilling to look at. Equally, the Seiko NH35. Again, nice to see, but it's not terribly exciting. So at least here, you've got that full showing off of all the parts, and I think they've done it quite well. So a little history on the tourbillon movement. Firstly, tourbillon in French means whirlwind, and I guess you can see why it's called that, because that's the motion of that complication. So the tourbillon was actually invented by Breguet in 1795, and that was a long time ago, and back then everybody had pocket watches. And of course, a pocket watch is kept in your waistcoat pocket generally throughout the entire day, more or less in the same position, and gravity would play a part in that because it would always be pulling on the escape mechanism, and as a result you would have less accurate timekeeping. So Breguet saw that problem and wanted to try and eliminate that positional error, so came up with trying to rotate the entire escape mechanism through 360 degrees, and as a result shifting that positional error. So a fantastic concept. Took him a long time to do it, and if you imagine, they wouldn't have had the tooling that we've got nowadays. So a real feat of watchmaking engineering. Of course, in today's world, you don't really need a tourbillon. We have wristwatches for a start, and wristwatches are in different positions throughout the day, but they are still held in very, very high esteem. Of course, most tourbillons are extremely expensive, and the likes of you and me possibly can't afford such wonders. So along comes the Chinese with their mass-produced tourbillon. We're going to look at it in close detail very shortly in this video, and you know, it is now available for the masses. So for people who collect watches like you and I, it's nice to be able to say that we've got a tourbillon in our collection, even if it's not a real precision one that's been handmade. It's costing tens of thousands of pounds. So I've removed the case back, and you can see the skeletonized movement. It's quite attractive in my opinion. It does look nice, certainly from the naked eye. We'll see what it's like a bit closer in a moment. I think the first thing for me to try and do is to try and remove the crown. And then we have a plastic ring. I'm just curious as to whether it's going to come out with the plastic ring attached, and it's certainly looking that way. Of course, I don't want to damage this. So there we are. So the movement is out, so let's get to the microscope. Just before I put the tourbillon on the microscope, a quick update on this thing, because any of you who saw the video recently where I was reviewing this product had a few little gripes, and I've actually managed to fix one of them, and somebody else has shown me another suggestion as well. So firstly, the lights. I thought the lights were too bright. All I've done, it's a bit crude, but I've used masking tape to diffuse that light, and that really does make a massive improvement. The second thing was, I said that we had no room to work on underneath, which is kind of correct, but what you can actually do, I'll have to try and wind it down to do this, is I can move the whole thing. There's two like little adjusters, and I can place it up here. Now it's very high, of course, but you do give you a bit more of a focal range and a little bit more room to maneuver underneath. So I just thought I'd quickly show that, but let's get back to this video. Okay, before we start, I'd just like to say that I don't want any preconceptions of Chinese products or their ethics, etc, etc. I know some people can be very judgmental, and you've made your feelings known in the comment section already in previous reviews. I'm here just to look at this with open eyes, see what's being achieved for this sort of price point. Is it any good? I'm not expecting the most greatest build quality, in all honesty, but then what are you going to get for that sort of money at the end of the day? So let's just look at it as a whole and see if it's an achievement, just to be able to make a tourbillon at this price point. So we will start here with the dial. Now the indices are all pretty boring. There's nothing special about those. There's no loom. The minute track looks okay. You can see at the 12 there, looks to be a little minor scratch. Now again, we are at magnification. I can't see that with my naked eye, but it's a shame to see it all the same. And as we go around some of these indices, there's another one there with a little bit of tarnish or markings on it. I want to avoid the tourbillon just for this moment. Here are the hands. Again, pretty average hands, and perhaps, you know, they could be finished slightly better. Ironically, the hands are actually offset. They're not completely centered because of the size of the tourbillon itself, so that's quite interesting to see. So we'll now bring it into shot. So I'm at sort of low magnification at the moment, and to be honest, having the hand there is really annoying me. I wanted to show you a stationary, but it just seems that it doesn't want to stop. And I haven't got the patience to wait for a number of hours to stop. So first of all, we'll just look at it from this magnification where we can see most things going on. So we can see the cage going around there, the escape wheel and the pallet forks. Now this is a 28,800 vibrations per hour, so it's a high beat movement, and that will give you, you know, a better accuracy. In theory, it'll give you a smoother tick, but of course we don't have a tick because the cage here will rotate once per minute, and that's the bit that you look at on this watch more than anything else. So what are we looking for? We're just looking to see at the moment the finish. So the top of this, I'm just trying to get something to use to point with. So the top of the cage here, again, we are seeing a little bit of tarnish. That is, to be honest, that's a bit disappointing, because that is the thing that you'd see in the main. We have those blued screws. Let's just see if I can get the light a bit better. It doesn't appear that I can. So yeah, we've got blued screws, and again, they're just going to be anodized or something. I don't think they're going to be real blued somehow, but it gives it that look. And then when we look at the jewel in the middle there, it's actually got quite a nice jewel setting and spring. Do like the look of that, but again, the finishing isn't fantastic. It's got, I'm curious to know whether I could clean that off with a bit of Rodico or even with my pegwood here, but it almost looks like a little bit of tarnish, doesn't it? Which again is quite sad to see at this magnification. However, it is a genuine flying tourbillon, so we are going around 1 minute per revolution. And yeah, so I think what I'll do at the moment as well, we'll get a bit closer and get really into it. So this is about as close as I want to get, but it's enough to again show you that little bit of tarnish. So it's a little bit disappointing to see, especially when you look down here at the, I don't know what you'd call it, that little arm that holds the escape wheel on. That looks quite crude, but then again, this watch has got many parts. These are going to be mass produced. This is not Swiss quality. We're not looking at a £10,000 tourbillon that's been handmade by a proper watchmaker. We are looking at the achievements of being able to stamp out parts, put them together, and to see if the thing's actually going to work and run well. Because of course, part of this video will be putting this on the Timegrapher. So, and again, we've got to take into consideration that I am at very high magnification, and to be honest, I can't really see this just at normal eyesight. But it is disappointing. I can't help but keep looking at that and thinking, yeah, can I polish that out? That's all I'm thinking in my head. Can I improve it? Maybe that might be for another video. But there we go. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over. We can look at the back. We can examine the wheels closely there. And also I will show you how the tourbillon actually works. So here we are on the back end of the movement at the least magnification, in all honesty, so we can see the skeletonized parts. And all looks very attractive, to be honest with you. I do like a skeletonized watch because I do like looking at the movement itself. So we have the mainspring there, as you can see, and if I turn the crown, you see all the wheels rotate to apply that power. That's good to see. The finish of the wheels, you've got some of the crown wheels here with a better finish than others. The rest of it, I guess, is just stamped parts. But to be honest with you, if I stuck a Seiko on here, am I going to see much difference? Maybe slightly better, but I think that's what you get for mass manufacturing. But of course, the main thing we're going to see and have a look at again is that tourbillon mechanism right there. So how does a tourbillon work? Now, I've had to do a bit of research myself. I've never had one of these on the bench before. This is probably the only one I'll ever have because I'll never afford the Swiss version of them. So I've had to do a little bit of research. And essentially what we have is an extra gear. So instead, on a normal train of wheels in a watch, the last wheel would then be powering the escape wheel. This doesn't. So we have this wheel there. I've got the horrible black end of my stick. So that wheel there is actually powering the motion of the cage that you can see spinning around above. But the fascinating part of it is obviously you have the escape wheel, which you can see is moving there, and that will be obviously being levered by the pallet fork. And the escape wheel has another little wheel, just you can just about see it there, and that as the pallet fork moves, the escape motion will make it go round that static wheel just there. So my guess is as well, just in here to get the cage moving, there seems to be quite a lot of gearing, presumably to reduce it, because all of this has got to be completely perfectly balanced in weight distribution and everything in order for the thing to run efficiently and constantly in beat. So it is a real marvel, even at this sort of cheap end level. It's a completely pointless thing nowadays, of course, because we don't need to have that anti-gravity sort of effect on a watch at all. But then equally, we don't even need mechanical watches, do we? We can look at our phones, we can have digital watches and whatnot. So it is just fascinating to see, and I'm really pleased to see it up close. So I want to now zoom in a bit closer again, and let's have a look at it in much more detail than we can see currently. So now we're at maximum magnification, and we're looking right at the center of the tourbillon. And I've just tested this off camera, so it's a bit disappointing to see. You can see the poor finish by that jewel on the bridging, and if I get in closely, you can see, if I rub it with my pegwood, that I can actually remove that hue, if you like. It's obviously some sort of residue, I'm not sure. Now, of course, a bit of Rodico is probably going to do that a world of wonders, and that's probably something I will do off camera now I've seen it close up. That looks, is that a piece of fluff or is that a scratch there on that particular wheel? Ooh, so it is a little bit of lint. Now the trouble with that, of course, I've got the thing out. So was that in there from factory, or is that fallen in from just being on my bench? So I can't answer that, so I'll have to dismiss that as possibly something that's happened while I've had the back off. So anyway, let's just quickly again show you that mechanism. So again, you can see this wheel turning as part of the train, and then just conveniently passing is the escape wheel, and you can see that little gear on the bottom that moves in time with the pallet forks unlocking and locking to drive the whole mechanism around that central gear there. That to me is fascinating in itself. It really, really is. I can just watch that, but again, I'm drawn to more debris. So in that screw there, look, what is that? Can I get to it with my Rodico? Is it just a reflection? No, it is actually a piece of debris. So again, am I just causing this, or is this already in? I'll leave that up to you guys. But there we go. So we're seeing it as it's going around, and aesthetically I still think that's very pleasing. It's nice to watch, certainly with the naked eye, rather than at God knows what magnification we are at the moment, where we're going to see every last imperfection. Because at the end of the day, what can we expect? This particular watch is for sale at the moment at £390, which is quite a chunk of money. You can get a lot different watch for that sort of money for sure. There are other versions of this watch that are at least £100 cheaper, and possibly because this is AliExpress, they constantly have sales, and no doubt you'll be able to get this one at a cheaper price in one of those sales should you wish to pick it up. Now, would I recommend it? Possibly. Just for the aesthetics point of view, it looks nice on the wrist. You can say you've got a tourbillon in your collection. This particular model, I think with the open heart at the front and the very plain dial, suits it well. There are other versions, like I say, there's one that's got sort of moon and stars on it and things, and that to me, I don't know, it just looks a bit kitsch. It wouldn't be the one that I'd want to wear on my wrist, that's for certain. So to say you've got a tourbillon for this sort of price, certainly if it was £300, I think would be a winner. So the reliability, we'll have to put it on the Timegrapher to see just how in-beat this watch is, but I'm expecting it to be pretty decent, to be honest with you. A high beat movement in itself should be running pretty true and good. But again, I'm still mesmerized by watching that go round and round, but I'm always distracted as well by that finish that is. Just trying to see if I can get it off with the Rodico there, but I can't very easily. So that is a letdown to see it that close up and see that sort of tarnish, but there we go. So that is the watch up close. I was just going to try and zoom out again so we could look at it at a more reasonable level. There we are. You know, lovely and complex, nice to see. Probably make a nice gift for somebody as well, actually, to be honest with you. So let me put it back in the case and then put it on the Timegraph. So here we are on the Timegraph, and first I'd just like to say that this particular watch is quite noisy. The tick is quite loud on it, and because it's a high beat movement, the tick is very fast as well. And in the middle of the night, when it's at the bedside table, I found it quite annoying and I had to put it in the drawer. And I do like the sound of a tick as well, but I think it's just because it's quite fast. So anyway, we're going to put it on the Timegraph. Now, I have no idea how this is going to react on the Timegrapher because I've never had dealings with a tourbillon. So obviously this is supposed to be defying gravity, so to speak, or defying the effects of gravity. But surely that must have a sway somewhere on the line, depending on where it is in its rotation. I have no idea. So we're going to start and see what we get. Of course, I've muted it because otherwise the sound of the Timegrapher would out-drown me. So I'm going to move it up there to the dial up position, and we'll see what sort of trace we're going to get. Now we'll have to hurry through the positions because really I want to leave it to run for 5 or 10 minutes at each position, and I don't think you would want to sit here and watch that. But there we go, dial up is nice and consistent. I've no idea what the lift angle should be, so 52 degrees it is. But we're seeing a decent rate, a decent amplitude, and just about acceptable beat error. What happens if we go dial down? The dial down normally in a watch for me would give you a better reading, and we're getting consistency again, aren't we? We're not seeing too much deviation there at all. Nice straight line to within a second, and the beat error has improved. So we do see a slight variation depending where it is. So let's now go to crown up. So there we are, we're at crown up. And again, we are seeing quite consistent. There's a bit of noise. And it looks like the rate is dropping slightly, but nothing too alarming. So that's reassuring to see. Although now, just as I start talking, it's dropping off, isn't it? So how far is that going to get? And is it depending on where it is in its rotation? Because now look, we have the beat error getting a lot wider and the rate being unacceptable really in that position. It is the most stressful position I've always found when I regulate normal watches, but I don't know what to expect in this. So here we go again. You see now it's closing up and we're getting a constant reading. So I can only assume that again, depending on where it is in its rotation, will affect the reading you're going to see on the Timegrapher. So that's quite interesting. So let's just do the opposite. So we'll have the crown down. And to be honest, I think I'm just going to be seeing the same problem, aren't I? So here we go, it's dropping off. And then it's leveling off to nice, or fairly consistent. There we go. So if we just let that run for a moment, I just realised the camera's not wanting to focus on the Timegrapher. There we are. So are we going to see it drop off again at some point? I don't know how long to give it. Oh, here we go. There we go. So look, we're off now. So am I nitpicking? Is that something a tourbillon should do? I absolutely have no idea. I've got not enough knowledge on these things, but it's definitely interesting to see that it would do that in certain positions, look. And then obviously it's going to close back up and be good again further around its rotation. So if any of you guys know why it might be doing that, then let me know. I'm going to do my own research actually, because I haven't really prepared for this video, as I don't for any. I like to do everything off the cuff. So again, we can just put it at its other two positions, can't we, just for the sake of it, and see if we're going to see the same problems there. At the end of the day, what have we seen? I think I see minus 20 at one stage. And I guess if it's doing that up and down sort of variance, it's still going to be acceptable. I don't know what it's supposed to be accuracy wise, but you know, if it's within 15 seconds a day or something like that, that's pretty decent. But the beat error again keeps changing as well, doesn't it? So there's lots of what ifs and don't knows. There we go, it's all closed back up again. So it's doing the same in these positions. And to be fair, I don't want to waste more time. We know it's going to do it on that, don't we? And obviously the dial up and down are the better positions for it, because it's not getting influenced by anything. So there we go. That's the Timegrapher results. Very inconclusive. You know, it's reasonably accurate, but I'd love to have seen a straight line in every position, to be honest with you, because surely that's what it's supposed to be doing. But there we go. So let's summarise the watch. I think aesthetically, it's still very, very pleasing. Looking at it on the bench here, you know, seeing the tourbillon, and we now know it is a real tourbillon, it's pleasing to see. I like watching that. it is the focus. It's a very dressy watch. It is a little on the large side, but nice nevertheless. I would like to get a strap that's got the curves to fit the case. I think that would make it look a lot better. Of course, as well, the case back there is also very pleasing to see. But as we found out close up, it's not the best. It could be finished better, I feel. Certainly on the exhibition case back, if you want to show it all off like you are, then you want it to be a lot finer polishing. Certainly on the bridge work, I can forgive it on some of the gears and things like that. Certainly at this price point, you're not going to get perfection. You're not going to get that Swiss quality of finish, are you? What you're getting is a genuine flying tourbillon. There's no denying that. It is working as one of those would be. Whether it's running as good as one of those would be on the Timegrapher, well, the jury's out. I think, again, stamped parts are not going to be the most accurate way to do these things. But there we go. If you wanted to pick one of these up, there's going to be links below. There is a discount code, which is a retro watch, all capital letters, and that's going to get you $20 off any £200 that you spend using my links. Again, try and wait for one of these to pop up in the sale if you'd like to get one. I'm pleased I'm allowed to actually keep this one, so thank you very much to AliExpress for that. I will wear this. I'll enjoy it. Would I buy one for that sort of money? I just don't know. If it was £300, I think that's kind of like the sweet spot. It's an itch you might want to scratch, to actually own a tourbillon and have a look at it and be mesmerized by the way it goes round and round like that. Is definitely good, and certainly one for the collection. So like I say, there's links below. If you like this video, of course, give it a thumbs up. That's going to help Google's algorithm promote my channel. Certainly leave as many comments as you like. I'm going to read every single one, and I try to respond to as many as I can. And I'm sure this is going to split decision. Some of you are going to love it and think it's fantastic. Some of you are going to hate it. Even if you hadn't even seen the video, you're still going to hate it for what it is. You know, be kind, be respectful, please. And I will look forward to reviewing the next watch. We'll get that one out of the way, and I promise you guys we'll be straight back into the restoration videos, because that, I know, is what you like seeing more of. So bye for now. See you in the next one.